Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take the fire hose of information you sent us and distill it down to the pure insight you need. Today we are undertaking a really critical deep dive into the world's newest country, a nation born out of monumental struggle and celebrated independence, South Sudan.
That moment in July 2011 it was truly transformative. The entire world watched as a new flag was raised in Juba. But our sources, this really complex stack of political commentary, regional identity markers, and some deep linguistic analysis, they immediately capture the shift. From euphoria to friction. Independence solved one problem, but it created an immediate, profound domestic challenge.
And that challenge is crystallized by a question that just seems to dominate the whole political scene.
You've got what?
Exactly. And that is the implicit, kind of brutal framework for the post-2011 political reality. The sources suggest that the victory immediately triggered this intense competition for political clout, for resources, for influence among all these different groups.
And to understand how that high-stakes political game is played, you can't just look at the elite level.
No, you have to look at the foundational infrastructure.
Yeah.
The communication and identity that keeps the society functioning day to day.
That's exactly right. Our deep dive mission is to analyze this political tension alongside the ground level reality. We're looking at really disparate sources, a brief political comic that raises that central allocation question.
Who got what?
Yeah. Then some powerful regional imagery, and most extensively, a full introductory course on Juba Arabic. This mixture lets us analyze the state's official aspirations versus the societal tools people actually use to organize their lives.
And for you, the listener, this is essential knowledge. You're going to gain a comprehensive understanding of how Juba Arabic, this incredibly crucial yet officially unofficial language, is really the pulse of daily communication. It transcends ethnic and regional boundaries. We're going to reveal this tension between South Sudan's national political ambition and the linguistic reality that truly binds millions together across the country. Okay, let's unpack this political and cultural landscape. I think we have to start by grounding ourselves geographically. Understanding South Sudan requires recognizing its complicated birth. It emerged from a much larger entity, Sudan, and it shares a really volatile border.
Precisely. On the map, you see South Sudan's capital, Juba, located far to the south. To the north lies the older nation of Sudan with its capital, Khartoum. Juba's geographical position is just crucial.
It's not just bordered by the north, is it?
Not at all. It's also bordered by Ethiopia and Kenya to the east and south. This means Juba is a regional crossroads, constantly influenced by the dynamics of East Africa and the Nile Valley.
And that political tension, it becomes immediately visible when we look past the national flag. You look at the regional self-expression that's so evident in our sources. We see this powerful imagery, specifically the flag and map silhouette of the Equatoria region. And this isn't just, local pride. It's a visible signal of a deeply felt subnational identity coexisting, and maybe sometimes competing, with the new national identity.
And the visual details are so striking, so symbolic. The Equatoria flag is dominated by 3 horizontal stripes. You have a blue stripe at the top, a red stripe at the bottom, and they sandwich this large green stripe in the middle.
And they're little bands, right?
Yeah, these thin yellow or gold bands framing the green and red stripes. And then central to the green stripe is a white circle featuring this dark, recognizable animal figure. The source context describes it as either a rhino or a bull.
What's fascinating to me is that this emblem is often placed within a recognizable map silhouette of the Equatoria region itself. It's a very deliberate act of visual assertion.
It's not just a flag, it's a cartographic statement.
Yes, that's the perfect way to put it. It tells the story that the identity of the people of Equatoria, their history, their geography, their regional loyalty, it's a powerful force.
Yeah.
It precedes and stands alongside the newly won national independence.
It creates an immediate sense of friction, doesn't it? Independence was a collective goal, but the success of 2011 immediately required the new nation to figure out, how do we integrate these powerful regional subnational loyalties into a unified state structure?
Because if the people of Equatoria or other regions feel their identities being marginalized, that energy can easily turn inward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings us, with perfect analytical symmetry, right back to that central commentary piece that frames the whole tension. Who got what? It's the political elephant in the room.
It is. If the new government fails to reconcile these deep regional identities and ethnic claims, especially when it comes to resources and political appointments, the foundation of the state is inherently unstable.
And that phrase isn't just about money, is it? It's not just about financial resources.
No, not at all, though that is paramount. Who controls the oil revenues or the flow of international aid? It's fundamentally about the distribution of power, influence, and recognition. If the linguistic and cultural infrastructure of a major region is ignored, that region asks, did we win independence only to be marginalized by a different set of elites?
And the failure to answer that question fairly is what so much subsequent instability stems from.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've established the political fissures, the intense regional loyalties. If the political structure is inherently fraught, where do everyday people turn for a functioning linguistic bridge? Is this where Juba Arabic steps in?
Precisely. If politics is dividing the country along the lines of W who got what, Juba Arabic is what unites it. In the marketplace, in the buses, and across tribal lines. JA is the dominant critical lingua franca used throughout South Sudan. It's especially concentrated in the Equatoria region, but its reach is truly national.
And it's not just internal to South Sudan, which I find fascinating. It's also the language that maintained cohesion among the massive Southern Sudanese diaspora communities that settled in places like Canada and Australia after years of conflict.
It's a language of shared history and memory.
Totally.
And given the country's estimated population of around 8.2 million, and the fact that JA is used in all major population centers and by the diaspora, we're certainly talking about a language spoken by millions. It is a massive linguistic force, essential for cross-community communication.
Let's dig into its origins, because they are. They're deeply revealing. JA is what we call a Creole, but it started as a pidgin language, likely in the 19th century, and it was rooted in military necessity.
That's the key context. Its genesis is tied directly to the military jargon of the garrison or the Turco-Egyptian army operating in the south. You had soldiers and administrators drawn from so many different linguistic backgrounds, people who spoke Dinka, Bari, Shilluk, all these local languages, alongside Turkish and Egyptian Arabic speakers. They needed a simplified, functional means of communication, a pidgin forms, to bridge that gap.
So help us understand the significance of that military origin. Does that mean the language is historically rooted in command and hierarchy rather than peaceful market trade?
In part, yes. The sources note that the former army members were often referred to as the Jubies in East African countries. It's a nickname tied to the language. And a notable historical figure linked to this linguistic ancestry is former Ugandan President Idi Amin Dada. He spoke a variety referred to as Hiji Juba or Jew Juba.
Wow.
So the association with a military garrison-based communication style meant that historically it often lacked the prestige of, say, formal, written, or religious Arabic.
And yet, the source material notes that the garrison itself survived and maintained its elaborated linguistic properties right up until the time of the introductory course publication in 2011. This isn't a museum piece. This is a living language that evolved out of necessity and has been continuously elaborated.
Which brings us to the profound political and cultural paradox. Despite its long history, its efficiency, and its overwhelming ubiquity, Juba Arabic has never gained official status. Not even after the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. The CPA, that paved the way for independence.
It's just been neglected.
Neglected is the word the source uses. Historically neglected by formal institutions, even though it's the efficient working language among most Southern Sudanese.
This is a direct linkage back to who got what, isn't it?
Yeah.
If the elites who negotiated the CPA or who hold power in Juba are primarily educated in English or Modern Standard Arabic, or if they favor their own distinct vernacular languages, then officially recognizing the Creole becomes a politically unappealing move.
Why would it be?
Well, it elevates the language of the masses, which might dilute the power of the educated class.
That's often the implication with Creoles globally. They're viewed as linguistically impure or secondary. But the reality on the ground is different. The source explicitly mentions that in urban areas, particularly in the bustling neighborhood of Malakia, young people are growing up speaking JA as their mother tongue.
Their first language.
It is their native language, not a second language tool.
And to visually emphasize this grassroots dominance, the source points to a powerful anecdote. A wall painting found in Konyo Kalata Square in Juba. This is where the local linguistic choice meets public expression.
The message is simple, delivered in Juba Arabic. Kaden nastanina geniques. When you translate that, it's a localized, hopeful, and functional message. Let our people live well healthy.
It's not a formal government announcement.
Not at all. It's the language of the street, of commerce, and of shared aspiration. It shows that JA is the vehicle for public discourse and everyday philosophy.
The widespread adoption is also facilitated by its inherent structure, as you mentioned earlier. Historically, there were these complex attempts to standardize orthographies for many vernacular languages like Dinka, Jur, Bari, and Akoli. But JA simplifies things dramatically.
Today, Juba Arabic is primarily written using the Roman alphabet, making it immediately accessible to anyone familiar with English or European languages. And critically, the source describes JA as quite simple as a typical pidgin. That linguistic ease is its superpower. Structurally, it is far less difficult to master than the highly inflected modern standard or written Arabic.
So if you're a development worker, a business person, or a traveler wanting immediate functionality,
JA is the fast track to communication. Absolutely.
Okay, this is where we get into the technical heart of the matter.
Yeah.
If Juba Arabic is so simple, how does it convey the necessary precision of time and meaning? The course material provides some fantastic nuggets, starting with a feature that might be unfamiliar to many listeners, the essential role of tone.
Tones are a crucial characteristic of Juba Arabic. They're categorized as a suprasegmental feature, meaning they operate above the individual letters or sounds. In a language that has simplified its grammar by dropping complex inflections, tone is how JA maintains efficiency and distinguishes words that would otherwise sound identical.
So tone acts almost like an inflection or a minimal pair marker. It's what saves the speaker from ambiguity.
Exactly. The introductory course is meticulous in marking these distinctions. They use the acute accent mark to signal a high tone and the grave accent mark to signal a falling tone. If a word is unmarked, it carries a low tone. Mastering these is fundamental.
Let's really drive this point home with examples. You mentioned the word for watch versus correct.
Yes. If you say to EB with a high tone, you mean watch or clock. But if you shift that to a falling tone, to EB, the word now means correct or good.
That's incredible. So the difference between asking, is that your watch, and is that correct, is just a melodic shift.
Just a shift in tone.
Can you give us another pair?
Certainly. If you say tagal with a high tone, you might be referring to heavy, he. But if you shift that to a low tone, tagal, unmarked, you mean something closer to shoe or sandal.
Wow.
Or consider the word for rain, matar, low. But if you shift it to a high tone, matar, it can mean airport.
It's a language that uses minimal sound structure but maximal acoustic information. That is the genius of creolization. It simplifies the structure but compresses meaning into available features like tone.
And the course also points out practical variations in pronunciation, highlighting the reality of trying to standardize a dynamic street language. For instance, they note that sounds like E and H, which are common in many underlying African vernacular languages, are often simplified. They get replaced by N and J.
So they made a conscious choice to pick a common form.
Right. The compilers of this course, they adopted a common form to ensure accessibility for the broadest possible audience. They opted for words like shugal for job, even though regional variations like sugal or yugal exist. This standardization effort is crucial for a new nation trying to create some linguistic unity.
Okay, moving to the building blocks of communication. The pronouns JA presents a very functional and clear system.
Yes. The personal pronouns are distinct and easy to learn. Ana is ime. Nuo is the singular you. We covers the third person singular, he, she, or it.
And the plurals.
For plurals, we have nana, which is wehus, nuokon for the plural you, which is distinct from the singular nuo, and huma for they, them.
And the possessives, they seem very pragmatic, built directly on these. The course lists bitai for maimin, bitu for hisherts, and bitakun for the plural your. It keeps the morphology so simple.
And now we arrive at the true elegance of JA, which is the system of verb aspect and tense marking. This is where the language truly shines as an efficient Creole. It favors an analytical structure over synthetic conjugation.
What does that mean, exactly? Analytical versus synthetic?
It means instead of having to memorize dozens of verb endings that change based on person and tense, which is synthetic, J uses separate, distinct markers placed before the verb stem. That's analytical. It analyzes the time and action into separate parts.
So the key takeaway here is that JA refuses to mush the time and the action together. It keeps them separate, making the learning curve much gentler. Let's drill down on the three core aspect markers.
The first is the perfective or past tense. Often, the unmarked verb stem itself implies completion, especially in context. For instance, onagura means I walked. The action is done. Simple.
And then you have ongoing actions and habits, which are covered by the imperfective realist.
This is where the marker comes in. You place it right before the verb stem. Tagore translates to I am walking for a continuous action, or I walk for a habitual action.
So one particle covers both.
Exactly. This single particle handles both present progressive and habitual present, simplifying things immensely. For example, litashugal would mean he is working or he works regularly.
And projecting into the future or expressing intent is handled by the irrealis marker.
That is the particle shi. Anashigura means I will walk. If you master just these three core forms unmarked for simple past, ta for present habitual, and shi for future intent, you unlock, I'd say, 80% of verb communication in JA.
But the system is capable of greater complexity by stacking these markers. How does JA handle a complicated idea like past habits or conditional statements?
You introduce the auxiliary can, which acts as a fundamental past tense indicator. So for a past imperfective habitual, you stack can and ta. We can tagura means he was going or he used to go. It's a clear structural way to express a routine that existed in the past.
And for a past irrealis, something that would have happened but didn't, you combine can and she.
Correct. We can shigura means he would go. The system is beautifully logical. It uses these simple markers like linguistic Lego blocks to construct complex temporal relationships without relying on the highly irregular conjugations you find in so many other languages.
And finally, the course introduces the incoative, indicating the start of an action or state.
This uses the particle Buddha, which means to start. Buddha means he started to go. The sheer reliance on these distinct, unchanging particles highlights the analytical nature of Juba Arabic. It's built for clarity and rapid adoption across diverse linguistic groups.
Beyond verbs, the sources highlight how JA handles nouns, and it contains these fascinating linguistic artifacts like irregular plurals that have been retained from deeper source languages. It shows its historical depth.
The examples are compelling. The singular jewel means one human, but the plural is nas, which means people. The singular for woman is mora, but the plural is nusuan for women.
And these irregular forms stand out because the language generally prefers simplicity.
They do, and it proves that certain core high-frequency words retain their historical complexity. But on the flip side of that complexity, JA relies heavily on compound nouns to create new concepts efficiently. This reflects its pidgin origins, where combining known words is the easiest path to new vocabulary.
That's the linguistic efficiency in action.
Exactly. For example, a sleeping place is mahal nim, literally translating to place to sleep. Tears are meo anat, or water eyes. This strategy allows the language to adapt instantly to new concepts, whether they're technological or bureaucratic, by simply joining two existing root words. This constant coining of new, clear vocabulary is part of what makes JA so resilient and necessary on the street.
Okay, so having explored the structural DNA of Juba Arabic, let's move into the real world. The introductory course we analyzed isn't just a grammar text, it's a cultural primer. It presents these small dialogues that are just perfect windows into South Sudanese daily life.
These scenarios are brilliant because they teach grammar in context. They start with the most basic but crucial element: daily greetings and social exchange.
The formality is immediately apparent. You greet an individual with salam tubi.
Right, which is hello for a singular person. Or you use a lean if you're addressing a group, and you quickly shift to inquiring about health. Intakwe, are you well?
And the expected response is, of course, positive. On a quiz, salam. I'm fine, thanks.
The conversation then pivots to purpose, which reflects a society constantly on the move. A common line is asking direction, regewa win, which means, where are you going? The practical response might be, Ana go to gewa fi mahazara, I'm going to the farm.
And the exchange concludes with a farewell like salam and the formal rejoinder, a fan. You're welcome. It's polite, direct, and just. Functional.
Yes. Our next dialogue provides a wonderful cultural reflection: the thorn and the doctor. This anecdote focuses on childhood distress and community solutions.
The story's simple. A boy is sitting down crying, kara, because he stepped on a thorn, a shock. And his foot, his kure, is hurting, uja. His friend immediately steps in, not just with sympathy, but with action.
And linguistically, the friend uses the key particle sa to soften the request. This is critical for social interaction. It turns a command into a polite suggestion.
So what does he say?
He says, sa ana kedina aini, which means, please let me see your foot. That sa is the lubricant of social grammar. The boy is initially helped to stand up, gumfuk. The friend tries to reassure him, kure tubi buga kwez. Your foot became all right.
But the injury persists. The boy protests, lusa mayede uja. It is still not well. It hurts.
Oh.
What's culturally insightful is the solution the friend proposes next. He suggests they go to Laguta's place.
Ew, this is a perfect snapshot of a society in transition. Laguta is presented as a local solution, likely a known community healer or first aid provider. However, the friend quickly clarifies. Li dictor fi mustashfa. He is a doctor in a hospital.
So the traditional place, Laguta's place, is also implicitly linked to the modern institutional solution, the mustashfa, the hospital.
Exactly. It teaches the listener how to navigate both community knowledge and formal healthcare systems, all while using the imperative structure. It even includes the negative request, sa kintamerigewa, which is please don't go. It's grammar embedded in a life lesson.
Moving to a rural context, we have a deep reflection on village life and authority. This scenario involves a chief, a rais, visiting a village, a hailu, and arriving late in the evening, a suya. And he finds only an old man and a jewel.
The interaction provides a subtle but profound social insight. The chief is seeking the community, but the old man explains that the people, the nas, have all gone elsewhere, fi mahalatanin. The chief then asks a follow-up question that is highly revealing about communal life.
What does he ask?
He asks, did the women go with them as well? Nusuan kamanrewa biwihuma, the old man confirms. Yes, the women went out, and also the men and the boys and the girls as well. They have all gone out together.
That's not just a detail. It signifies the transient, often communal nature of rural movement. In many contexts globally, men leave for work while women and children stay behind. Here, the necessity, whether for seasonal work, collective safety, or just moving the household, requires everyone to move together.
It suggests a high degree of communal interdependence and mobility in the hailu, and the interaction shifts to hospitality. The chief is tired, Taban, and asks if there is a place to rest, a mahalnim. The old man's response shows immediate deference and grace. He offers his son's house, Betutajena.
It's a transaction of status. The chief receives rest, and the old man fulfills his duty of respect and hospitality.
Next, we see the bustling side of the urban center in the scenario about transportation and the bus stop. This is a microeconomic interaction that's crucial for a developing society. People are waiting for public transit, muwasalat at the stop, the mahuda.
When a bus arrives, the questions are direct and functional. A man asks the conductor, the commissary, if the bus is heading to a specific destination, San Casito or San Casito. This teaches the learner how to navigate a city using specific landmarks.
The real practical element follows immediately. Logistics. The man has a heavy load, a budu, and asks for guidance on handling it. Hela anashi umulukif, which is, how shall I do with my load, anichi? The conductor's response is equally direct, using the imperative. Vudu waju akaman. Put it inside, too.
That exchange covers public service etiquette, direction, and practical cargo management, all in a few short sentences.
And finally, the course provides a narrative that feels almost folkloric, yet is used to teach advanced grammar, hunting, and the passive construction. The dialogue discusses hunting crocodiles, Timseh, at the White Nile, the Bahar al-Jabal.
A man recounts going out with his older brother, Akuda al-Kibir, and the success rate is mentioned in very simple terms. Una kudulu talata al-Kibir, we killed 3 big ones.
And then the conversation immediately transitions to using this topic to demonstrate the power of the passive construction.
This is where we learn to focus on the action received rather than the actor performing it. It's a formal, useful construction.
Exactly. For example, reflecting on the fate of the catch. Kimsade sawurbi. The suffix "bli" signals the passive voice, translating to, this crocodile was stuffed.
And the course uses the same structure to demonstrate how it applies to people and authority, linking grammar right back to the political structure of the new state.
We see that in the example, Rujulde bisawurbi mawalak, this man will be killed by Walak. The passive construction is highly efficient for legal and formal contexts where the focus needs to be on the event, the killing or stuffing, rather than the complex agency behind it. This section is also used to embed numerical education, running through numbers from 1 wood up to 20 shirin, and then the tens up to 1,000 ulif.
It truly is an exhaustive foundation for life in South Sudan.
It is.
Okay, so after diving into the foundational grammar, we have to acknowledge that Juba Arabic isn't static. It's a dynamic, young language, constantly evolving and interacting with external influences, particularly those from the north and from global culture.
That continuous evolution is captured beautifully in the course materials when they discuss borrowing and slang. The sections on South slang, or SS, and South Juba Arabic, SJA, show a drive toward linguistic efficiency and modern identity formation.
We see clear examples of the language being streamlined through word clipping, where speakers shorten known words for rapid communication.
For instance, Madaresa, school, gets clipped down to Mayday or R-TGONU in common slang. It's the linguistic equivalent of a text message abbreviation. We also see numerical shortening, taking Ishirin 20 and clipping it to Ishi. This is often a hallmark of young urban speakers shaping the language.
And then there's the fascinating evidence of borrowing, which reveals this continued cultural entanglement with its northern neighbor, Sudan.
Yes, the adoption of words from Khartoum slang is a notable feature. Terms like Lugoya, meaning girl or girlfriend, and the use of kways for nice are absorbed. But we also see a clear path for global influence, particularly from English. The concept of quality might be expressed using top, a direct borrowing from the English word top. This mix local vernaculars, military Arabic, Khartoum Arabic, and English makes JA a modern linguistic melting pot.
What elevates this textbook beyond just a simple language guide is the inclusion of material that addresses moral and ethical development. It highlights a clear nation-building imperative. We see this in the two songs, or prayers, that are included, demonstrating powerful moralizing content.
This tells us the authors saw the textbook as a tool for creating responsible citizens for the new country.
Song 1, Kadomin Tai Jesu, or Bringing in the Sheaves, is centered explicitly on the values of labor and faith.
The lyrics focus on the necessity of hard work, shugul hadi, and the mission to show people the way to true life. It concludes with the spiritual element of Jesus saving them, we bayulaji. It's an ideological reinforcement. Work hard, follow the path, and redemption will follow.
And Song 2, Rakiru Rabuna, Remember the Lord, takes a much more direct, cautionary, and I'd say political tone. It warns listeners against the dangers of materialism and temptation, which can easily derail a fragile new state.
It speaks directly about the world-cheating kabasu with its sweetness, halawa. It uses religious figures to warn against the devil, Satuni, and explicitly targets the lure of the lust of the body, Jusim, and the eyes, Enna, which will lead people astray by Muduru.
This is more than just religious instruction. It's a moral imperative directed at combating corruption and societal decay, things that can quickly undo the independence won in 2011. It implies that linguistic proficiency and moral rectitude are necessary, mutually reinforcing pillars for the success of the new society. It's a developmental curriculum packaged as a language lesson.
And finally, we can cycle back to the state's formal power structure, because even the technical examples of the passive construction in Section 4 were applied not just to hunting, but to state authority and justice and crime.
That juxtaposition is deliberate. The hunting context is casual, communal, but then the source immediately pivots to formal legal language. The phrase, "Nuatharafpi tasharafpi," directly translates to, "You will be arrested by the police."
So the passive voice, often used in legal documents and official pronouncements, is deployed here to discuss the police and arrest. This subtle inclusion of state warnings, arrest, law, justice alongside daily greetings in village life, it contrasts the casual use of the language with the formal, potentially dangerous power of the newly established state authority.
It's a full-spectrum portrait of life under the new government.
It truly is.
It paints a comprehensive picture. A new country defined by powerful regional loyalties like Equatoria, struggling with the distribution of power and wealth. Who got what? All while relying on a highly efficient yet officially unrecognized communication infrastructure in Juba Arabic, which is simultaneously trying to guide the moral compass of the citizenry.
So we began this deep dive with the monumental achievement of South Sudan's independence and that immediate political challenge. The resource and power allocation encapsulated by the phrase, who got what? We saw that powerful regional identities are fiercely maintained, often through visual assertions like the Equatoria flag.
But our exploration revealed that the true mechanism for bridging those deep ethnic and regional divides, the most efficient working language, adaptable through simplified grammar and tone, is Juba Arabic. It is the simple, honest, beating heart of a society. It's the language of the diaspora, the market, and the urban youth.
The most critical takeaway for you, the listener, is the profound gap between this reality and political rhetoric. Juba Arabic, a mother tongue for many and a lingua franca for millions, remains officially neglected. Mastering JA is key to efficient engagement on the ground because it reflects a practical need for communication across ethnic lines that formal political institutions have, so far, refused to legitimize.
The linguistic structure itself tells a story of pragmatism and efficiency, of people finding the simplest path to understanding each other across a highly fragmented ethnic terrain. It's a democratic language, really, created by necessity, not by decree.
So we leave you with this final provocative thought, looking back at the last decade and a half. If language is meant to reflect national identity and political unity, what does the official and sustained marginalization of Juba Arabic tell us about South Sudan's true national consensus 14 years after its birth? What happens to a political system when the language used by the powerful elites is not the language spoken, loved, and utilized by the majority of its population?
Does the failure to embrace the people's language hint at an underlying reluctance to truly embrace the people themselves? Food for thought indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complex identity, language, and politics of the world's youngest nation.
We'll see you next time.